We've all been there, that moment where preparation meets pressure. And for me, that just happened to be on the baseball field. During my pro career, I was a closer, the last player to come in to finish a game. And I learned to stay calm with everything that was ongoing in order to be successful in those scenarios. But I watched teammates, unbelievably gifted, dominate practice and then freeze under the lights. And then there were others, smaller and quieter than myself, that would come alive when it mattered most. Same field, same training, but totally different outcomes. And there were nights, to be honest, where the pressure got to me too. And I would often leave the field asking myself, what happened, what went wrong, and why? And that last question has stayed with me long after my playing days ended. Because if we can measure every physical detail of performance, such as speed, power, and skill specific metrics, why can't we measure the one thing that decides everything? And this big idea is back and simple that pressure and clutch performance itself isn't random, it's measurable. And because it's measurable, you can train it. So I want you to think about your own high pressure moment that you might have experienced recently. A big presentation, a final exam, an interview, a conversation that went well or maybe didn't go well, date or a breakup, for example. Heart's racing, palms sweating, time just slows down. Well, that's pressure. But pressure isn't just emotion, it's truly information. It's your brain's real time readout of how you respond to stress. And once you can see it and feel it, then, in theory, you can train it, not just in athletes, but in everyone. In sports, we've spent decades rewarding what has been easy to measure. If it can be timed, weighed, or graphed, it matters. And if it can't, well, then it doesn't. And that's why the mental game has been the missing piece of the analytic picture in sports. Because coaches often say players either have it or they don't. And it's that one word, it, that describes exactly everything that we don't understand. And to show you just how ridiculous this is, let's meet the most elite athlete within my household. My 6.5 pound Pomeranian named Bear. So we're going to run through a full scouting report in a current structure that's currently being used today in sports. So let's start at the top. What's Bear's strength? Well, Bear is 100% Mummy's #1 protector, and Daddy Dan over here is second fiddle and will be till the cows come home. I'm okay with that, though. What about his speed? Well, when we play fetch in the dog park, there's no faster dog, and he's outrunning dogs 3 to 4 times his size. So he's quick. Okay, well, what about his weakness? It's pretty simple. Pizza crust. And more specifically, Batty Alley Pizza from downtown Toronto, if any of you have had it. It's bomb. But the final question, what about his mental skills? Is he mentally tough, mentally soft? Is he resilient? Well, that's the big question mark, outside of the daily sass and judgment we get from him on a daily basis. So, to put it all in context, if we can create a scouting report for my dog, why can't we create one for the human mind? And it falls back to this statement right here. What we can't measure, we misunderstand. So we developed a framework that actively measures how people think, focus, and recover in high-pressure moments. It's a 15-minute process that quantifies this performance in these stressful moments. And after thousands of assessments across multiple different sports, we found one thing, that clutch performance isn't random, it's measurable. And our data revealed that clutch performance is about 65 to 70% trait, which is your natural stable wiring, and about 30 to 35% skill, which is your ability to train. In other words, your mind seems to have mental genetic limits similar to what your body does physically. Fascinating. As well, some people that might be born with higher mental ceilings, but everyone can strengthen their mental skills, and just like a muscle. And throughout this process, we've also established normative scoring ranges and specific correlations with them. For example, 73% of all NCAA athletes we've scored above an 800 plus clutch factor range are All-American or All-Conference selections. Conversely, Any high school athlete that scores above a 750 plus in their clutch factor is 2 times more likely to commit to a Division I program. While those general correlations are great to have, we've also had certain athletes who've scored high where their performance under pressure matched what our numbers predicted. Take Devea Crawford. You probably never heard of her, but you will if you're into softball. Devea Crawford, at just 14, is the starting center fielder for the 18U National Championship travel ball team in the U.S., and she scored an 846 on our assessment, higher than all pro softball athletes we've tested so far, and 60 points higher than the 2025 Gatorade National Player of the Year. Another example is E.J. White, who's a Division III walk-on that lacked physical tools, a bit overweight, had a funny arm angle, as you can see up here, yet finished top 3 in all of the NCAA in saves, and his clutch factor score showed why by being the highest on his team. EJ and Devea had very different paths towards their successful outcomes, but had similar mental signatures. And at first, we thought we built a system directly for these athletes. But what surprised us most was what the data said about people. It showed that pressure isn't just a sports phenomenon, it's a human constant. And the same mechanisms that determine which players perform in the bottom of the ninth are the same mechanisms that determine which students perform well during exam week. And when coaches first saw these scores, they said the proverbial comment we got from most, which was, okay, well, that's great, but now what? And that question became our next breakthrough, which was building a full mental scouting report, which translates numbers into contextual meaning for coaches and mental performance staff. It shows how someone learns, communicates, stays motivated, and recovers when things get tough. For athletes, this is a guide map of where to grow next, and for coaches, it's a blueprint on how to reach these players more effectively. When data turns into dialogue, players stop feeling like statistics, coaches stop guessing, and conversations about the mental game start to become normal. But performance isn't just about one person, it's about connection. And our next work is the frontier of identifying friction points from where players and coaches don't mesh under stress. Because even the most clutch athlete, if the fit is not right, will not succeed. We're also working on building early prototypes to analyze team chemistry markers based around 3 main pillars: trust, communication, and alignment. And this will provide more understanding as to why teams act the way they do and a more concise touch point. And one MLS partner that we're working with recently said it better than I could have, which is, your reports are giving me what normally takes 4 one-on-one meetings to learn about my athletes. That's not replacing human connection at all. That's accelerating its understanding. And beyond sports, these ideas are reshaping other high-pressure worlds. For example, in Ontario alone, 20% of all OPP officers are currently on long-term leave for PTSD. That's staggering, okay? When you think about it, pressure is costing us lives, budgets, and mental health. So we're now actively partnering with public safety and defense leaders to see how these successful frameworks in sports will correlate into those settings. Because pressure doesn't care about uniforms. It cares only about how the mind responds. And yes, I did give Bear an unofficial clutch test recently, and he seems to be pretty darn clutch around ice cream. Yeah. So now let's go back and think about your own clutch moment. That time the outcome depended on you. Did you rise? Did you freeze? Or did you focus in and succeed when it mattered most? Because that pattern isn't random. It's your mind's fingerprints under stress. Because clutch isn't reserved for just athletes. It's a life skill. And it shows up if you're a student chasing grades, or a parent navigating young children, or a leader under stress. And once you can understand your pattern, then you can train it, just like any muscle. For years, we treated pressure as something to fear, a test that only a select few could pass. But pressure doesn't create greatness, it reveals it. And now, for the first time, we can measure that revelation. Like a scale shows what the mirror can't, understanding the mind replaces assumption with insight. If we can quantify how humans perform under pressure, we're not just changing sports, we're redefining how people prepare for life's hardest moments. Because when we improve how we perform under pressure, we make better decisions, we lead with more clarity, and we show up stronger for the people who rely on us. If you take one thing away from this talk today, it should be this: you can improve yourself in pressure moments. And it's not just for athletes, it's for all of us. Thank you.